Hi there, welcome to our webinar. We'll give our joiners a few more minutes and we'll start in basically a couple of minutes. Thank you.
We'll get started in just a few, everybody. Alrighty, I think we are set to go here. Give me 1 second. Perfect. So appreciate everyone jumping on here to this webinar today. Really excited to introduce you to Centime if this is the first time, and take you on a little tour and a little bit more information on who we are and the problems that we're helping solve, all as it relates to cash flow. So Centime's overall mission as a business is to help other businesses continue to scale efficiently and better manage the lifeblood of their company, which is cash flow. Centime's suite of solutions here all work seamlessly together to bring companies better insights and help them forecast, manage, and control cash flows. Specifically, we help teams automate and streamline the areas here below, which we'll be diving deeper into today. And those areas being cash flow forecasting, accounts payable automation, accounts receivable automation, working capital and credit, and then KPIs and cash reporting. All of these solutions here are available directly inside of a NetSuite interface with a bidirectional sync working 24/7 in the background. It's a super simple SuiteApp download and implementation process with almost no IT resources required. And we're going to be spending majority of our time here in this NetSuite demonstration. So feel free to hang on to your questions as we go through this. We should have enough time for a Q&A afterwards, but make sure to jot them down because nothing is worse than having a question and forgetting about it a couple minutes later. So we want to ultimately make this the most of everyone's time on here. So please be interactive, and we love to help with specific questions afterwards, and should definitely have enough time.
And
so with that being,
there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen in the Zoom bar. So you feel free to drop questions in there, and we will answer all of them at the end.
Awesome. Yeah, and if you want to monitor that, Sergio, and if it makes sense to like stop and address one as we get to that area, feel free to jump in.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, the first area I think we are going to dive into today is going to be this monitor cash and forecast cash flows module. And as you can see, just in general, Centime is set up where each different area or function that we're helping folks streamline, automate, and gain insights from are going to be separate modules in a very easy to use interface here. And again, sitting directly inside of your NetSuite. So you don't have to jump between so many different tools to handle these different processes and kind of, take your NetSuite to the next level, if you will. So when I jump into the monitor cash and forecast cash flows, the first screen I'm taken to is an area for me to understand how much cash I have on today. I'm able to aggregate any bank accounts I have, from a business standpoint, as well as pulling in that GL balance directly from NetSuite to compare the two, do any digging I need to with any discrepancies, and ultimately understanding how much cash I have today. And not only today, but when I look out my business 6 to 13 weeks from now, jumping over to this cash flow forecast, this is where we carry a lot of power to provide you a ton of insights and data to help drive day-to-day decision making. And this cash flow forecast in general is more of the operational bottom-up direct method forecast where we're analyzing transactions and individual inflows and outflows to help build you a big picture to better predict and understand, again, what my cash is going to be today, 6, 13 weeks from now. All of these inflows and outflows that we see here are going to be coming from 4 key areas to help build this giant picture. The first is going to be AR versus AP in NetSuite. The second is going to be expected AR and AP, or expected transactions that are going to occur, as we're going to bring in historical data through machine learning and AI look back to understand trends and patterns and help make predictions as it relates to cash flows in the future. The third is going to be the non-invoiced expenses, like a payroll, for example. And then the fourth element is going to be your ability to come in here, alter the forecast, change any predictions around, build in manual transactions to really model out those what if scenarios and understand the impact of a potential investment or a potential increase in customers before it actually happens, so you can plan and get ahead of it and make the best decisions you possibly can. So if I see, February 25th, the week of the 19th through the 25th, for example, my business is expected to bring in 311,000 and send out 400,000. If I wanted to do any further digging into those areas, specific inflows or outflows, I'm actually able to drill in there to see not only where the amount we're projecting is coming from, but also if that's predicted, if that's an invoice, et cetera, just to do my further analysis to then, if I do need to change anything around, I have all the necessary information I need in order to do so. Where we can take this forecast to the next level and get more granular with it is going to be in the cash flow table view, which essentially breaks down every individual inflow and outflow our business is anticipating to incur over the time period we're looking at in a very digestible table format. So we have cash flow from operations, investing, and financing. With respect to today's demo, we're going to be sticking to cash flow from operations, again, more of the customers and vendors that you're working with, kind of the meat and potatoes, in and out daily transactions of the business, where when I fold out the inflows and outflows, the next layer of hierarchy, if you will, is going to be what we call cash flow groups. This demo account isn't too complex with the groups that we've created here, but just trying to paint a picture where you could think about this in any of your business needs. Maybe it's, mid-market SMB enterprise customers, maybe it's the products in which you sell, however you think about dividing up essentially your inflows being your customers, as well as your outflows, it's my marketing expense, my tech expense, whatever the case is. So we can report on both the group level and then see where that group amount is coming from via the individual vendors or customers. What's awesome about this too is I can drill into any given inflow or outflow to understand kind of that next level data, where I can view historical transactions that have taken place. I can view future transactions that we're anticipating to happen, again, based on that machine learning and AI look back here, as these are going to be predicted expenses. So this is one of our accountant payrolls, maybe an outsourced accounting firm that we're using, and it's costing us about $13,500 every other week. But if you wanted to play the scenario and say, hey, I know that we're staffing up our business, we're growing, this expense is going to be, we need to bring in one additional accountant maybe early in March. And I know that this expense is going to jump from $13,500 maybe around to $15,000 every other week due to our company growing, needing to bring an extra set of hands to handle the books. I can come in here and actually make that adjustment myself. So I'm able to actually change what we are projecting, basically putting the hat on of saying, hey, I know my business better than the best AI system in the world does. And I know starting in March, this expense is going to be closer to $15K moving forward. So I'm going to make that adjustment moving forward. And then once we have enough confidence, we will continue to make smarter predictions down the road. And then I'm also able to come in here and add in a new transaction. So maybe in the scenario of this accountant outsource doesn't make as much sense, but let's pretend this is a vendor that we work with where maybe we need to purchase new products from. Maybe it's a piece of equipment that we're thinking about purchasing. I can come in here and model out that expense, whether it's going to recur or not, how often it'll recur, if it's going to increase or decrease by a certain dollar value or percentage over time. So I can really understand the impact this is going to have or not going to have to my cash flow in order to determine if it's the best decision for me, not just today, but maybe, a couple months or quarters down the road. So from a forecasting perspective, we want to make sure everything can be accounted for that we possibly are able to project out and build into the forecast. And ultimately, the best way to describe this is using it as a map to make decisions related to, hey, should I accelerate this inflow here? Should I try to bring this in because I see I have a lot of payments set to do? Or, hey, should I move some of these outflows out based on not having a lot of cash coming in the door this week? So using this forecast as a map to help drive decision-making as it relates to the other areas of cash flow control, being AR and AP, for example, is kind of the full picture here, and being able to do that seamlessly directly in the same tool. So one of the things that I mentioned there in terms of using the forecast as a map to drive decision-making as it relates to inflows versus outflows, when we think of inflows, we think of us invoicing our customers and receiving those payments timely and predictably. So when I jump into the Manage Receivables module, this is one place where we can really try to drive and accelerate our cash flow by, again, using that forecast as a map. So the key areas here within the Accounts Receivables module, first is going to be visibility. We can see when payments are expected to come in based on historical payment patterns through that machine learning and AI analysis we're doing from NetSuite historical data. I can jump in to see communication history between any of my customers and my team, any notes that we've taken, what we've done to collect from both particular invoices as well as customers in general. The second aspect is going to be automation. So keeping everything centralized is a huge, important piece of understanding what's happening in any given customer account. But the biggest piece here with respect to accelerating collection speeds and making sure that our team and process is set in a very scalable manner is going to be through these automated collection reminders. So as you can see here, each customer is assigned to what we call campaign, where you're able to create as many different campaigns as you want and can kind of think of them as a way to model out your perfect collection process through technology. So what I mean by that is B Sharp Music is assigned to this slow payers campaign. So invoice will still be created in NetSuite for B Sharp Music. As soon as that invoice is created, it will automatically funnel in here to Centime and then start to follow the set of schedule here in terms of whatever campaign we have assigned to it. So in this example, the first email is set to be sent 14 days before the due date with a customized email template here. You can create as many different templates as you'd like. So obviously maybe our different groups of customers we're reaching out to don't all have to follow the same communication style. As obviously collections is not a one size fits all process. It's a very personalized process, a very customer centric process with respect to collecting invoices. So 14 days before the due date, 7 days before the due date, on the due date, and then a couple messages as well after the due date, where we are making sure that we're touching this invoice in the exact manner that we choose, where nothing can really slip through the cracks. Well, maybe we have, Academy Sports and Outdoors here, one of our customers that we have a better relationship with, they kind of have a lot of trust with us, and we're only sending them 3 reminders throughout the process. So being able to not only make sure that you're following up with each and every customer in the exact manner that you choose, but also making sure that there's no possibility one single invoice can slip through the cracks as your business continues to grow. That's typically where some of these invoices can fall out and not get the attention that they deserve. simply because you don't have the manpower to ensure that we're following up on every invoice, which is where we come into play. And then the last piece of the puzzle as it relates to collecting easier, quicker, and more predictable from your customer base is going to be providing them with the best customer experience possible. And our version of that is providing them self-service through these collection reminder emails. So when the emails are sent out with a copy of the invoice PDF with this customized template, what we're also going to do in there is provide a link where your customer could simply press that link and be brought to a unique experience where they would have an option to pay that invoice online and automatically apply that payment back into NetSuite, saving your team time on the reconciliation end and saving the customer time with them not needing to jump into their bank portal, issue an ACH payment, call your team up over the phone, exchange credit card information. However, the old school manual payments are made today can totally be re-engineered to improve the customer experience and save a lot of time on both ends of the spectrum, and ultimately accelerate collection speeds and get that cash in the door much sooner than anticipated. And then when it comes to using data to drive decision making on the accounts receivable side of things, we have an awesome set of KPIs that are actually available on all three levels. But obviously, with respect to receivables here, this is what we're going to focus on, where I can actually get customer level data to help drive decision making as it relates to collections. So this impact percentage here is essentially a combination of folks that I'm invoicing at a high frequency, at a high dollar value, that are also paying me late. That if I can move the needle 1 or 2 degrees with these folks, I have the biggest opportunity to accelerate my cash flow. So maybe I'm going to use the data and take every customer that's over, let's say 10%, and put them on a campaign that's going to be much more proactive, sending them more reminders throughout the process to try to drive that behavior and ultimately get them to increase their days to pay me, maybe just by a couple days. But the opportunity that can create for my cash flow could make a huge difference. So hopefully this paints a good picture from the accounts receivable side of things. And obviously there's a lot more details we can get into, but for the sake of kind of an introduction here and making sure that we get through everything, hopefully that helped. Then the next area when we talk about using the forecast as a map to drive decision making would be the outflows of your business, which come in the form of accounts payables. So accounts payables process in general is one that your team has a bit more control over versus accounts receivable. This is one where we're deciding when the payments are going out. We're not depending on a customer to pay us at their own speed. So we have a little bit more flexibility here in terms of tying in the forecast directly with our AP process to make sure that we're paying the right people at the right time with the right payment methods, all with our cash flow in consideration. But not only just payments, accounts payable is not just payments. There's a lot of manual process that goes into effect here that could bog down and let things slip through the cracks. So we're tackling the full end-to-end accounts payable journey, starting with vendors sending you a bill to your email, or if they're still sending you a manual bill, basically just customer sending you a bill. We are able here in Centime to extract that bill from any given email and upload it here to route it for that initial approval. And what we mean by that is, let's say we get a marketing invoice, maybe our accounts payable team needs to approve it, then the head of marketing needs to approve it. Once we receive necessary approvals, we can actually post that invoice or that bill to NetSuite and create that official invoice in that vendor record within NetSuite. And here's a couple examples of bills that we have captured from that email technology that are either waiting for some approvals. Down here, this one, for example, if I press on awaiting approval, I can see exactly where that approval is hung up, who's already completed their approval, etc. I can jump in here and see the exact workflow, see a copy of the invoice. Again, this is an image that we are scanning from an email. And then also, remind folks that might need to approve these invoices that, hey, we're waiting on your approval before we can post this invoice to QuickBooks. or vice versa, maybe one that, hey, the image quality from the image that we captured isn't 100% the best. We need a manual set of eyes to come make sure that we're going to post this invoice in the right place after we send it on through the approval journey. So kind of the first step of the process is going to be getting necessary approvals, posting that invoice to NetSuite, and then taking it on that payment journey. So when I switched over here to unpaid invoices, these are all going to be official invoice records in NetSuite, that we've already gone through that capture and approval and posting process. And these are ones that are ready to be paid out. So the best part of bringing in the forecast blended with the accounts payable process is that I can make sure that I'm making the best decisions as it relates to my cash flow with, again, respect to who to pay, when to pay, and with what method to pay. So if I come in here to one of these invoices and schedule for, let's say, February 6th, for example, we can see that outflow move from when it was expected to be paid, which didn't have one, over here to the 6th. And we can understand the impact of that payment and that cash leaving our bank. And basically the cash balance versus what it would have been if that payment never happened. So again, when you get a more in-depth scenario here with a lot more transactions coming in and out every day and playing the decision of, hey, I see I've got 4 vendor payments set to be paid next week and we have almost no cash coming in the door. Let me jump in my payables module, push those out to the following week where I see I have a lot more cash coming in to kind of offset and not need to incur that dip. So the key here from a accounts payable standpoint is not only automating the manual process with respect to approvals, invoice posting, and scheduling payments. And I kind of forgot to touch on, but there's also a set of approval rules here once I do schedule this payment, where maybe person A needs to approve the payment. And if it's over a certain dollar value threshold, person B and C need to approve that payment as well. So there's 2 separate approval workflows you can build in here, the invoice approval, the payment approval. But point being is that it's tied in directly with your cash flow, automating every manual step of the AP process and making sure that you're making the best decisions, as this is one process that you and your team really have control over to make sure that we're managing our cash flows in the best possible manner. And sometimes, unfortunately, as it relates to cash flow, there is no perfect scenario that a simple AP juggling exercise could tackle. And that's where Centime Cash comes in. Another one of our solutions here embedded directly inside of the tool, which is essentially a short-term line of credit that's tied in directly with your cash flow piece. It's a very easy application process. And we actually have a sample line of credit here embedded directly in this NetSuite demo account, where I can jump in and see my available balance from this line of credit. And this is for more of those situations where, again, juggling around a simple AP or 2 isn't going to do the trick. Maybe we have a large payroll run. We have a large expense that we can't really get out of in terms of being flexible, along with not a lot of cash coming in. And we simply just need a little infusion here to help us get through this time stretch. So we'd be able to choose the account. Let's do $100,000 here of the 300,000. And I can see that I was in a negative cash scenario here, about 87K, and I jump 100,000 up to a positive 12,000 cash flow that is now infused into my business, ready to be used at a very affordable and inexpensive cost, where I can also play with the payback period to see what the cost is going to be at different times, but essentially making sure that I'm making the best decisions as it relates to managing my cash flows and making sure I have enough cash to survive, again, not just today, but the key is looking out, 6, 13 weeks from now. And then the last piece here, as it relates to the solution Centime can offer growing businesses, is going to be monitoring KPIs on all 3 of these levels. I know we already touched on the receivables, so don't need to drill in there too far, but also getting that same layer of visibility on the AP side with particular suppliers, seeing what terms we're not taking advantage of, why are we paying this vendor early, kind of understanding the behind the scenes to then drive further decision making, as well as cash flow in the form of burn rate, runway, gross burn rate, understanding by groups where majority of our cash is coming in and out of, and then also getting that same statement view to really help drive and use real-time data for decisions as we continue to scale, and really give yourself a place to say, hey, are the changes that we're making working? Are we improving month over month, quarter over quarter as it relates to collection speeds and hanging on to our cash a little bit longer on the payable side? So ultimately, Centime is a very easy to use tool, very easy to get up and running within NetSuite as well. Very short time to value. I'm happy to connect with anyone on this webinar here in a more one-on-one demo setting to ask any particular questions regarding your business, but it's a very straightforward go live process, and very simple and smooth, and happy to pause here for any questions that we had gotten. Sergio, I'm not sure if you're able to see them or not, but I know I went through that all pretty quickly. So if we have time, happy to dive into other areas as well.
Yes, we've had a question from Diane, and I just provided an answer. Diane, if that answer is covers your question, or if you would like to elaborate further, please let us know. And if anybody has any other question, please do let us know.
Thank you for answering those.
Great, thanks, Diane. Certainly. Griff, can we please walk through the payment process on the AP side? If you would like to go to the unpaid invoices and explain the payment process.
Yeah. So with respect to the payment process, the first step here is obviously scheduling that payment for processing and approvals. And as we see here, if I jump into any given of these suppliers, we have a preferred payment method that we can select for these folks. So if I were to go schedule a default payment for Best Picture, that's going to be on my my credit card here. ACH and check also options from a default payment perspective, and that doesn't mean every payment we need to be making is this default method. This is just kind of, hey, when I go to schedule a payment, this will be the preset one, where I can come in here. Let's do this invoice, for example. We'll go ahead and schedule this one for Friday the 10th to be sent via credit card to the supplier. And we also have our own virtual card offering directly through the tool as well, which is a pretty unique offering in the sense of getting you 30 to 50 days of cash float. So obviously hanging on to your cash a little bit longer. The system knows that as well. So when we do go to schedule payments, that cash is not taken into consideration from that impact graph above here, as well as also providing you cash back. And I'm just kind of touching on the credit card offering while it jumped up in front of me. But essentially, front end of the process here, I could be on the accounts payable team, where I'm basically scheduling invoices to be paid at certain times. I can add any remittance notes that I want as well, included in these notices to suppliers. And then once that payment is scheduled, you're able to build a hierarchy in terms of what happens next. So I'm the only user in this demo account, so I'm going to have kind of all functionality here, the scheduler and the approver. But essentially, whoever's up next in line would receive a notification through the tool. They would receive an email saying, hey, you have X amount of payments for approval or pending your approval. Where if, let's say I'm the controller, I'm the next person up, I come in here and see my list of invoices that I could either approve or reject, as these are kind of my two options at this point. If this makes sense to pay this invoice on the 10th, I know what it's for, et cetera. I can come in here and confirm it. And then maybe and I believe this is going to be the last step in our demo account, but maybe there's a rule that you've created where, hey, any invoice over 20K needs to get approved by an additional person after myself. So maybe that hits their queue, they get an email. But essentially, once all necessary payment approvals have been received, and again, invoice approvals are a full different process, but with respect to the payment approvals, once we receive all necessary approvals, that invoice will automatically be paid on that particular day, where the supplier would receive remittance, as well as posting it back to NetSuite. And then I can always come in here and recall the payment up until the date, in this case, February 10th. So if we got into a discrepancy recently and we actually messed up and don't want to issue this payment, I can always basically put it back to the front of the line up until that date hits. So from a payment workflow perspective, hopefully that helped. And Sergio, if you wanted to add in any additional color, feel free.
And the only last thing I would like to add, Diane, is that we support check via check. What I mean is that we will print, send, allow you to track checks, and also send full remittance details to suppliers. We also support an integrated ACH solution, meaning that it's a very simple onboarding process, and once we get you up and running, you can send payment supplies via same-day ACH. Very important point I want to note is that we do not move funds from your accounts and keep them into any other account. We just make straight through ACH payments, same-day ACH payments by default to your suppliers, so they will either get paid today or tomorrow, latest, the next working day. As Griff said, we support an integrated credit card. These are secure one-time use virtual credit cards, which are sent to card accepting suppliers. And as Griff said, we also support a managed service to get on the right time your suppliers to know that they could get paid by credit card. Many people prefer that because it's a direct deposit payment into their bank account. And finally, if you already have a credit card that you use in the business, any Visa, MasterCard, commercial card, you can plug it into our system and you can make payments straight away to any supplier, because what we support is a process where you can use your credit card to pay anybody, and we will send them an ACH payment in the background. So multiple payment methods, all geared towards a payment process, as you saw here, which is fully digital, and also in line with understanding the impact on cash flow and managing cash flow through AP. We are firm believers that AP can have a massive impact on cash, and that connecting the dots between the accounts payable process and the payment runs and the cash impact of the business is the right way to go. Hope this answers your question, but please let us know. Great. Any other questions by anybody?
And I know we went through that pretty quick as well. So as I mentioned, if we need a more personal one-on-one or run your unique scenario by us, happy to set up as many of these Zoom calls as needed for a more live conversation, as it's tough to digest everything at once as well.
Perfect.
Great. Well, thank you guys all so much for your time. We greatly appreciate it. If there's any additional questions, again, that come up a little later in the day, I know how tough it is to think of everything online. Feel free to follow up via email or whatever's easiest for you. We're always here to help, and appreciate your time as well, and hope you all have a great rest of your week.